I'm Eric Barden.
I'm Amy Barden.
And welcome to another episode of Bombardened. Today, we're talking to who?
One of my favorite people in the world, Nichole Alexander. I often
Everybody
describe
cannot
as,
be your favorite person in the world.
I said one of, but she actually is at
the
top.
very tip.
In homeless response, she is my favorite.
Okay.
She is. I quote her most often. I think that she's brilliant. And I'm often trying to translate. So Nichole is somebody who has lived through a lot of the experiences that the folks she's seeking to help are going through.
She has credibility.
She has a lot of credibility. She's fascinating to me because I didn't know that. Again, I figured we had a similar background. She's super educated, really, she's more articulate than I am by a mile. And so it was really interesting.
Where does that put me? I'm
She's more articulate than you.
Well, I know. I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm trying to translate often, form this sort of bridge between these practitioners who absolutely know and have documented evidence, proven data about what works, how we get folks indoors, stabilized, and then again on a path to recovery, translating what they know to the folks who are actually making investments and writing policy. And I find there's just
what you're saying is you think we should do what works and fund what works.
This is a new idea.
I have none of it.
Yeah, this is novel.
I'm from the city.
You can't make fun of your hometown.
I didn't say that. I'm formerly from the city.
He loves Seattle.
I do.
He loves Seattle.
All right. Well, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I know of her. I look forward to meeting her. I'm really looking forward to this episode of Bombardened.
Yeah, this one's going to go long. I'm telling you.
Okay.
I love her.
Long. It's not. It's not Sean Ryan long. It's not Joe Rogan long.
It's not going to be 4 hours.
It's not a 4 hour. This would be maybe an hour.
Okay.
All right.
We'll see.
Welcome, Nichole Alexander.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here. So I have been talking you up since the day that we met. Early on in the job, I was trying to understand not just what doesn't work as it relates to crisis response and our unsheltered neighbors and overdose and all these things. I'm trying to figure out who knows how to do this, what models do work, so that we can really shine light on those models and drive investment. Because a couple of years ago, I felt like the whole city and county was under this sort of almost like a malaise that everything's terrible. We're always going to have tents. We're going to have 30 overdose deaths a week. And there just felt to be some resignation around. And so I think I met you, probably I had asked Lisa Dugard or someone, who is doing homeless response the best, what does work? And so she connected us. And I remember going to your office first and you had this whiteboard. And I've talked about it a lot because it cracked me up how analog your whole system was. She was like basically, and she's just very matter of fact, like, we're going to go do some basically, we're going to get some folks indoors today, right? So there was an encampment under a bridge, as I recall, right, with a number of different tents. And she's showing me whiteboard. She's handwritten by name list, different characteristics. It's color coded. I remember asking, what does that mean? And you said, it means they have a cat. I was like, okay. And then off we went. And I put on my boots, which my team calls my homeless boots whenever I'm going out. And one of my colleagues was like, remember Devontae said, does Eric know you're doing this today?
Eric did not know
I was doing this. But it was so impactful and inspiring to watch you do the work. The level of trust and familiarity you had with folks. And I've often said, people do make sense to me in context, right? When people were talking through their concerns, you remember one young man, he was concerned that he and his partner were going to have different rooms. And he asked, can she spend the night? It was so sweet. There was something really sweet about it, that was his concern. And you explained, yeah, of course. We just want you to have separate spaces in case the relationship goes sideways. And so with that, you got to tell us, how did you wind up in this work? And what do you do that gets such better results than other teams I've seen?
Yeah. How did I end up in this work? I ended up in this work comparing jobs with somebody else, actually. At the time, I was going back into the prison and working with women who were incarcerated around building business plans. They were in a business and marketing program, which I had actually been in myself while I was in prison. And when I got out, was able to get an internship with that company to go back in. And so when we were comparing jobs, she was telling me that she was an outreach worker and she was going out into homeless encampments and doing all these things. And I was like, oh, well, I have time. I mean, I'm in
Yeah.
school and I'm also like doing other things, but like I have time. Maybe I can fit that in there. And so I had applied to another nonprofit that I actually worked with for quite a long time. I worked with Reach and started there. And then when the Just Care model started during COVID, I was actually the person who was the outreach worker that was working in that area. And so I just like organically started working with PDA, with Just Care as the person on the street, and then developed into being a director now with co-lead over at the Public Defender Association. It's not Public Defender. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Purpose, Dignity,
it's
Action.
Over at Purpose, Dignity,
Yeah.
Action. Yeah. So that's how I kind of got into the work, by comparing jobs with somebody else. But then I started boots on the ground, and I still am daily boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I think that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And I've had that throughout my whole life in different arenas, right? Be that in recovery, be that in addiction services, reentry. Those of us who have walked that path usually understand where the problem is, where the bottleneck is, and have some kind of concept of what the next steps would actually look like to start to develop a real answer for things.
So you're a bit of a redemption story, though, as well, yourself. So tell us a little bit about your history going back.
Yeah. That'll take the whole podcast. So long story short, I've been out 6 years out of incarceration. I've done 3 tours into prison for drugs and other paper crimes and so forth, but stemming from addiction and survival skills. I come from generational incarceration and generational crime. While I was incarcerated, the last time around when I was arrested, I knew that it was like my last run, right? Like I can only be arrested so many times and be under investigation for selling drugs and all the things. I didn't know what was going to change my path. I didn't know how I was going to change my path, but I just knew I was done.
Yeah.
I've been in drug court. I've graduated drug court. I've also failed drug court. The day I was approved to graduate drug court, the second time I was arrested for distribution because I was clean, but I was not. I didn't have the means to survive. Still, I was selling drugs, and that's why I ended up going to prison. And so I've also been to multiple treatment centers. I've done like every type of like inpatient, outpatient, all the things, right? And so I've done inpatient behavior modification while in prison as well. So there's all these different realms of things that people say, like, this is how you solve addiction. This is how you solve homelessness. This is how you solve all these things. And I'm like, and I've tried that and I checked that box. And so, you know, it is when somebody's ready, that's when somebody's ready. And then you have to build that community and that support around them. And that can be in many different aspects, many different environments. And so for myself, when I got clean and sober, I went through a lot of different trials during that. I was in prison. My mom passed away while I was in prison. I ended up getting behavior modification. I went into school. I really dove into school while I was in prison. I became a butterfly technician, which is very odd in its own. I think we're probably one of the only prisons that have rearing, researching, and breeding of an endangered species called the Taylor checker spot butterfly. And so that was my introduction into school. I was also doing night school for business and marketing or business and entrepreneurship. I got accepted into college before getting out of prison. And so that was like my pathway. I went to a clean and sober house. I was on an ankle bracelet for parents to reunify with their children. And I did everything that other people were telling me to do, which I'd never done a day in my life, okay? You would tell me, I would do opposite. So I really focused on trying to do things differently. And I went to school. I was working multiple jobs and really fell in love with what I was doing. Yeah. It became a passion of mine to learn law and policy from the other end of law and policy. And so I do have an AA in business and entrepreneurship, my BA in law and policy, and then my MPA in Masters of Public Administration, Public Policy, Nonprofit, Profit.
And you're going to be Dr. Alexander.
I would love to be Dr. Alexander. Yeah. I applied to the UW and was accepted into their
That's awesome.
EDD program for higher educations and prison systems.
Eric never knew what an EDD was until he looked me up on LinkedIn. And he's like, is this erectile dysfunction? Like, what does she do?
That's what EDD sounds like to me. I don't know. Simple, not a doctor.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
doctor. Doctor, almost doctor.
Would love to
not
be
a
doctor, yeah.
Anyhow, we got to hustle you a scholarship.
I am
Seriously.
trying very hard.
Yeah.
It's $100,000 for the
Yeah.
program. So I
Right.
took a step back and I'm trying to find funding or a pathway in to be able to do that because I'm also a mom and like have
We need
to
to on the
work and all the
podcast.
things.
You got some things going on. Yeah, we'll have a little
Yeah.
ticker
The
on the
GoFundMe.
bottom.
Ticker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my
Yeah.
brief story. I have over 10 years clean now, 6 years out, and
Yeah.
lots of degrees.
So it's interesting. You know, it's fantastic, actually. I spent 10 years as a supervisor at Seattle PD Narcotics, and then I
Mhm.
came back almost 5 years as the commander of narcotics.
Mhm.
So have a whole lot of...
He probably arrested you.
That's what I was like. I was just thinking that. I was like,
Does she look familiar? But what I'm just struck by in your story is that when you said when you went to prison the third time, and I would imagine there's some stints in jail in there too.
Oh, lots
you're
of
not
stu-
even counting.
I'm not counting
That
at
doesn't
all.
even
No.
count. That is
Mm-mm.
not
No.
even worth mention. But prison time, that's what we're counting here. You said when you went back to prison the third time, you said you knew that was going to be it. So
that was it.
So I'm interested in two things. What changed?
Mhm.
What made that a pivotal moment for you? And then two, what is the role of law enforcement and incarceration? Did that interruption? Did that interruption of your lifestyle and the way that you were doing things and conducting your life? Was it that law enforcement intervention that led to the highly productive person that we're sitting with today?
Law enforcement interruption is an occupational hazard for somebody that was operating at the level that I was operating. And that's kind of how I saw it.
Yeah.
So I knew going to prison the first time when I went in 2007, when you walked in the doors, they were like, you're a felon, you're going to be a felon for the rest of life. You're never going to be able to rent unless you find a private renter. You're never going to be able to find a job that's going to keep you, functional for your family and all these things. And it was just like, you're now a felon, right? Which was pretty hard for me to stomach. And I accepted that. I came from that lifestyle. Half of my family operates in that lifestyle. And I was born and raised in that. And I was like, I am a drug dealer for the rest of my life. And I kind of accepted that.
What is the motivation behind that messaging at the time, in your opinion? Is it actually to prepare you for these are the restrictions going forward, or is it shaming?
Or is it resignation from the other incarcerated folks?
It wasn't from incarcerated folks. It was the system itself. The system itself, when you walk through that door, you are now a felon and that's what you are for the rest of your life. And that was, this is 2025. That was 2007. So messaging has changed. There is a very large shift now within the system. But that did not happen the first time nor the second time. And when I got out the second time, I was immediately, there was not even I was immediately doing what I was doing, and I was already on investigation 3 weeks out. But I knew that
I
the way
appreciate your tenacity.
Yeah, I had to survive. I knew that what I was doing was only going to end up in one spot, and I also started to realize that there was other skills that I had that had to be able to get me, somewhere else in life.
Yeah.
Right? Like I knew that I could function, that I was extremely intelligent, that there was other things in my life that I possibly could do. I just didn't know what those were because I had been submerged in that lifestyle for so long.
I do feel like sometimes we overcomplicate it. I know people who are like, no, dealing was a family business.
Yeah.
I grew up around the trades. I did not have exposure really to lots of different ways of being. The stuff that later I studied and what I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Nothing, no exposure. And so the thing that makes me crazy about that messaging is the greatest predictor of who we become is what is messaged to us.
Yeah.
It is. So if I tell you this is who you are, this is who you'll be, that alone on repeat is the greatest indicator of who you become.
It definitely was, it resonated in me from the minute that I finally ended up going to prison.
Yeah.
For a very long part of my life, I grew up in a very weird situation, very Jekyll and Hyde. My mom's family is executives, elected officials, all these things. And my dad's family is not. My dad's family is very generational incarceration in crime. I was raised in literally groomed into that lifestyle. And so when the second lifestyle was like basically like, nope, this is what you are now. Like it just was, that was what it was. I think I got tired. I also, I've been through many stints of like drug court and all these things. I was a mom. I would get clean and sober while, I was pregnant or these things. But in the end, I always went back to selling drugs. It was always a survival skill. And so I needed something different, which within the incarceral system, there was not, because of where I was at a very small prison. There was not job training that was going to make it so that you could financially support yourself and a family with multiple felonies coming out of the system. And so I really put a lot of faith into folks saying like, no, there's this other way. Like, just go to school, learn this, try this. And so that's
so the third time in prison, what changed? What was it? Was it fatigue and you were just like, I need to do something different? Or what? Or was it a positive message where somebody said, hey, you could go a different course here. You could utilize all that brain power. I mean, you've always been smart. You didn't just become smart after, prison. Like, so what was the change? Why did you think this is the last time I'm going to do this?
The moment that I was arrested, and this is like the pivotal moment where I knew like this was no longer the person who had worked with the DEA to turn me in with the drug task force I had known for over 20 years. And I wasn't safe. And at that point, like, that's just not a lifestyle that being an occupational hazard or whatever, it's like, it was just done in my life at that point.
You couldn't trust the people around you. You realize that the environment that you were in was not one where you would ever have true lasting relationships.
Yeah, and it wasn't safe. What I was doing wasn't safe, and there was no longevity, right? It wasn't like I had these big gaps. I was like released from the gate and back in jail within a year and a half, and that was because of how long, or back in prison within a year and a half.
You had kids at that time. So how much do you think that played a role where you're like, I got to do something different for the kids?
Yeah. So my children have suffered extremely hard situations from me being incarcerated. My daughter was 11 and a half months old. I put her first birthday invitations in the mail, and I was arrested by the drug task force that day. And she was about 14 years old when I got out the last time. Yeah. So I spent her whole life basically in there, right? My son, from the time he was 9 until the time he was 19, I didn't get to watch him graduate high school. All these different things, like they were raised in trailer visits and in gymnasium, holiday events and Girl Scouts behind bars and all these things that are a trauma impacting a child that never asked to be in that system, right? And also, one of the biggest factors for my children was that I wasn't present, because when I was doing what I was doing, they were with my mom, because in my mind, I was keeping them safer, not being around them. So the door wouldn't get kicked open, or they wouldn't get pulled over in a car, or like, you know what I mean? All the things that like, even though I was out there doing what I was doing and trying to survive and committing all these crimes and all these things, I did not want my children to be exposed to that. And I had that option that they could be with my mom. Coming out now, third time, nobody in my family believed that I was done, because hello,
why would
you, right? I had been Washington's Most Wanted, like all of these things that had been so traumatic to like my mom's family is all very square, right? And like, here I am on the front page of the Seattle Times. Here I am, like Washington's Most Wanted, like all these things. And like, they just don't want anything to do with you. And my kids had to go through that. It was very, very traumatic when I was on Washington's Most Wanted and went around my son's high school. Yeah. And it was not, not great.
It's humiliating. Yeah.
And so he didn't come see me my last time down. Basically, my mom died while I was down. It was very hard. My sister took my kids, and we've worked really, really hard to repair those relationships. Both my kids are at home now. My son's back in medical school, like doing all the things. He has a very fancy degree.
You were just taking your daughter to a concert. I mean, it's fascinating, Nichole, because again, I had no indication that you had any lived experience other than your effectiveness. I just related to you. I was just like a cool, smart woman, probably studied social work, probably never knew you had a bad day in your life. It's really impactful to listen to the work that you've done to restore your relationship with your kids. Because, I worked in foster care for quite some time. And I saw this story again and again and again, that in the minds of the parents, it's like, this is the kindest thing I can do for these kids, is to limit their exposure to me because of who I am. And I think, I can't remember if I shared with you, the first time I went to drug court graduation, that's what got me. I mean, I just sat there and cried because every single graduate on that day had kids and then also had a parent or a sibling or somebody represented in the audience. And I thought about the generational healing that was happening.
I've been very blessed that both of my children, neither of them have been in the incarceral system.
Yeah.
And that is despite the odds, right?
Yeah.
My son grew up in Everett, went to Mariner. He got a full ride scholarship to the UW for academics.
Wow.
He has this very fancy degree. He's back in med school again. My daughter just graduated. She went to Linwood. You know what I mean? So it's like these things that like, there was all the markers. There was all the things. And they defied the odds. They've defied the odds right now. And I celebrate that. But I also think like as somebody coming from that situation, like all the things that I did, all my lifestyle, all the things, that's how come I can operate in the job that I do now and operate well, right? Because these are my folks, like out there in the streets, these are my people. Some of them are folks that I actually know. I've been in prison with some of these folks. I've been their mentor.
Yeah.
I have family members that are out there, and so I think that yes, having lived experience does help that. And then having the education behind all the studying helps me to sit at the tables with folks like you and to be able to like really put words and draw the map and try to help implement things that sometimes folks just put their hands up and they're like, this doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Like we've tried and tried and tried. We've tried for 20, 30 years to like
poured money into it.
And yet we have recently worked on things. We've worked on a program for 3 years, the Right of Way Initiative, and it was extremely successful. It's probably the most successful program that we've had in Washington State to work on homelessness. And it is still actually successful, but yet all the funding got...
We're divesting.
Yeah.
So what was the placement?
So
it was like
was
94%, 91%?
95%. I think statewide, 95% of folks accepted coming inside. So that means either to like a program like us where we had temporary lodging, to tiny homes, to enhanced shelters, wherever their best fit need was. We were placing individuals from the right of way, so Washington State Department of Transportation land along I-5. 3 years ago looked much different, right?
Yep.
Hundreds and hundreds of people.
And these are low barrier placements?
These are all low barrier placements, folks that have substance use, mental health, behavioral health, have partners, have pets, and have belongings. And those are like...
So 95% of the folks you contacted accepted.
Yeah, came inside. That's why those
came
tents
inside.
are coming.
Came inside, yeah. And then 70% of those folks went on to get permanent housing and are still in permanent housing 3 years later.
That's incredible. So
so we just ended it.
Yeah. So that
let's not do that.
3 years, and then they were like, actually, nobody's left along the freeway, so we're good.
Yeah.
But what about the core of the city?
Right.
Yeah.
What about all the other spots? What about as you work
and this
that?
is because the state was funding the right of way, right? And now you're talking about county and municipal funding. And so we dropped the ball between jurisdictions, right? So what were the core tenets of your program and why do you think it had such remarkable success?
Yeah. So the core belief is that individuals do want to come inside, right? There is a very misconception around that individuals just don't want help. And that is not true.
I argue.
Not true.
Every day. Elected say that all the time, that people just want to be homeless. Like,
not true. Not true.
Categorically false.
95% of folks accept coming inside. And that is because we offer safe places that I would stay in, that you would stay in, that when you walk into them, feel welcoming, that they are staffed 24 hours a day with case managers and de-escalation teams. And we focus on bringing folks inside, working on their legal, right? So like while you're outside, there's been some things, you've gotten trespasses, you've got thefts, you have drug possession charges. So we work with the legal team to work on that, right? We work with medical providers to get you to the doctors. We will sit with you at the doctors because it is very, very hard for individuals when they come inside and now you finally are taking care of yourself and then you go to the doctor and they don't want to listen to what you're saying and they just want you out of the office, right? We will sit with you through that. We will work with you on your SUD. Do you want to go to treatment? Do you want methadone? Do you want Suboxone? How do we navigate this with you? Are you going to meetings? Do you need a support network? So those are also things that we work with. But we also wanted to work on the regulations that a lot of shelters have that people are like, I don't want that, right? So like you have a partner. Okay, so we want to make sure that it's not just for you, it is for your partner as well, right? So when we go to an encampment site, we had enough units for every single person there before we started, right? So it was not like we're going to pick the top 5 or we're going to pick the top 10. Like we knew we could help every individual there besides if there was like a super high ADA need or something that we would have to like work with a partnership around getting like respite care or something of that nature, right? So, and then we're still working with that. We're still working multi-organizations to plan for folks. We're also allowing pets, right? So I'm going to come see your kitty and I know you have a kitty and I'm going to take a picture and we're going to document it.
There were a lot of cats.
It's on the whiteboard.
A lot of cats. Yep.
Color-coded.
Yeah, color-coded. I am very analog. I needed to I needed to be able to like visualize it and then see it and write it. Yeah.
But the point is, just pause. I think people think we need state-of-the-art medical and pour money into all of these different systems. I'm like, it's Nichole with a clipboard and some logic.
And like, and the through point, right? So that was the biggest thing that we have with the Right of Way initiative. They purchased or master leased apartment buildings. So folks would come into transitional lodging. So like with us, temporary lodging. And then when you come inside, you get stabilized, right? You take a little bit of time for your medical, you take time for your SUD. And we really see like, what level of housing do you need? Do you need a higher needs level where they have like medication assistance and stuff like that? Or do you need like a light touch with a case manager and some life skills and stuff like that? Those would be the buildings that they had purchased. So right now there's 5 buildings in operation. So folks would come in and they'd be with us anywhere from, 30 days to when we had the buildings up and running, probably 30 days to 4 months, depending on how fast we were filling buildings. And then you go into permanent housing. And with that, your aftercare case manager comes with you. So our team already has a team that's going to meet with you and be like, now that you're into permanent housing, we're going to figure out where your DSHS is, your bus passes, where the laundry is, all these different things. And we're going to keep going to court with you because the court system is slow and it takes a long time. We're not going to just put you in a room and leave you and walk away and be like, oh yeah, you're good, right? So we have folks that go from us in the encampment into lodging, and literally it is my team, it is us loading you into a van. Our team is meeting you. They know what you look like. We've sent a picture. My team comes in a couple days and checks on you, right? We see you. We want to make sure you're good. And then as you're getting moved into housing, we're there too, right? And we're talking with the building operators. So we have a connection with the buildings that actually sees us, right? Like we see them, they see us. We know who's moving in there. We help them move their bins in. We help put their blankets on the bed if that's the thing,
so
right?
You're building credibility with the folks that you're dealing with and a level of trust because they see you at various stages along the way. So it does not feel like a system. It feels like people
it's a golden thread.
People are actually cared about. I mean, that's what's interesting. A lot of what she's doing is reparenting. You're assessing where are the gaps. And Eric, I've heard you talk about this. We've put the onus on the least skilled part of our community, right? And probably the most traumatized and the most anxious to navigate these systems that I myself could not navigate. Yeah. I think you were the one who said, I've quoted it often, that a root cause of homelessness is paperwork. Yeah. I think, does that sound like you? I think that was you.
Why are we like required? Like at the end of the day, one of the things that we did do with the Right of Way initiative was we eliminated a lot of the requirements that it takes to get into housing, right? Like we need to have proof of who you are. Yeah. We need to know this is appropriate and we need to work through that, right? But like, sometimes when you, like if you were to go right now to try to get on housing, get on a systems list, you have to call, you need to have them be able to call you monthly, send an email, do all these things. And it's like, you're living in a tent, you're worried that you're going to get moved every other night, you can't sleep because you have other people that are trying to victimize you. all these other things. Do you think you have a cell phone and an email address that you can access and
Mailing
check
address,
in and like
medical
all of these
records.
things? Right?
Yeah.
How do you hold on to your ID? How do you have your social security card? You can't get your social security card without your ID. Like, you know, all these things. And so really looking at the system and then redesigning it is what we did with the Right of Way initiative, what the bigger picture was designed for. And it was beyond extremely, extremely successful.
So one of the things that is really, really controversial, and I've heard a variety of perspectives on this, and you know, the easy answer is that everybody's different. I know that everybody's different, but I'm looking for themes here. So you're talking about a vast majority of the folks that you run across have addiction issues, substance use disorder, right? So how does it, but at the same time, you say you're providing low barrier but safe places that people, so how do you reconcile the fact that many of the folks that are going to be taking advantage of the low barrier housing are going to be using, are going to be unpredictable, are going to be suffering the symptoms of SUD and living, you know, cohabitatively with the other group of folks, and are folks that you know, maybe are a little less stable, perhaps because of crisis issues. Are they on a different path, or is everybody sort of going into this communal tiny homes village, or how do you direct folks based upon their own circumstance?
How do we direct folks? We know folks. Like, it is 100% about relationships. So we work out there every single day for weeks and weeks to be able to really see folks at their crisis points. Like, how do we de-escalate you? What does it look like to have a hard day? Is it, you know, you just need to take a walk and have a cigarette? Is somebody need to hear what you're saying and like really, truly, you just need somebody to hear you? Is it a mental health issue that you need to like reconnect with substance or with like a provider? So those are the reasons we're out there and we're looking and we're like engaged with folks and we're really wanting to know about you. So then as we sit down and we look at resources, we look at where we can place you, right?
To right size. So it's not a one size. And I think, Eric, what people misconstrue often is they hear low barrier or housing first, and they think that that means come open use community and we're going to leave you there. The real idea, the correct idea is I got to get you indoors before I can start you on any kind of rehabilitative path. And what they did really well, again, it's that through line. There's a difference between the first 30 days. I know it was you who taught me why you need that stabilization period. Because when I first came to the work, I was thinking in terms of foster care where it was like permanence as fast as possible. You want to be able to, you know, kind of anchor down and have roots and have community. And so I was thinking in this, you know, very myopic way, how do I get this person into the right environment quickly? You taught me, no, it takes a minute. You know, for folks who are years and years and years into this space, sometimes it's 6 months before we can begin to know who you are. And ideally where you would be, what you would be availed of. And so I do often hear it's that sort of, you know, 30 to 120 days. Denver's doing this model where it's like, we've got all of these buildings, we're going to bring you in. It's going to be low barrier, but we're not leaving you there.
Right.
You know, the idea, I think, should always be recovery, sustained recovery.
So one of the things, and this is going to blow your mind.
I'm ready.
5 years we've been operating temporary lodging, so shelters. And we have had 0 participant overdose by deaths.
That's
or
awesome.
Deaths by overdose.
Yeah.
Zero. So that's thousands
from
of people.
A community that left out.
We are in the fentanyl epidemic. So that's not saying people have not overdosed. We have been able to successfully reverse all of them.
Right.
Because of the way that we are set up, because of the conversations that we have, because of the trainings that we have, and around the education, right? Around use, around safe use, what that looks like. And then one of the things that happens while folks come inside, they start to feel safer, right? You're not in, I need to use to stay awake. I need to use to feel safe, to be around my surroundings. What we have with one of our buildings that was a right-of-way master lease is that individuals came into our program and then they went into permanent housing there. That building called us one day and said, hey, we have 3 people that want to go to methadone, but we don't have transportation. We had gotten a grant recently. We're like, we have transportation. Let us get this van scheduled for you, right? 3 individuals turn to 23% of that building are now dosing, right? Because you have community, because you feel safe, because you now have the things that you've been struggling for very, very long time. And so you can start to look at yourself and start to look at your well-being and start to be like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I need something different, right? Like
Yeah.
this was their time. This was their ability. We have folks that come into temporary lodging and they're like, I'm ready to go to treatment, and we're going to do everything we can for that, right? Those folks in permanent housing, they have now built their own community. And it's an amazing building that we work with. And we still work with them all the time. I was just on the phone with them the other day. But now that housing provider is trying to replicate some of their other buildings into how we've designed that building so that folks do come in and do transition and find recovery and start to feel safe. And that's huge. But you can't do that most of the time unless you really have safety in where you're at.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think besides, folks just want to be homeless? That's something I hear. Another idea that seems to be out there right now is that all these folks are service resistant. So are there other myths like that you can address?
I think the biggest one is that this person's been to rehab, so they're never going to get it. Right?
Oh,
This
like
person,
they failed.
they went to it, they came out, they relapsed, and so that's it, right? This person's a criminal, they're always going to be a criminal. I think that am I walking proof of that? Yes. I've been to almost 13 different treatments, like 12 or 13 I'm at treatment centers, right?
Yeah.
I've also been clean, gotten relapsed, been clean, relapsed, whatever. So I think that those are two of the biggest myths that we work on daily, and especially like most folks in the field that we work on. You never know when it's their turn, right? When they're ready to get clean. And I work on that a lot. I also think that like when you're looking into the community and you hear the statements like, well, this just isn't going to work. It's not going to work. We don't know. We've already done all this.
Yeah.
I fight against that every day.
Yeah.
I'm like, we do know what works. We have been doing it. We've been very, very successful at it. It's very unfortunate that it was for just, a strip of property that was owned and not for the whole city or for the county.
But at least you have a proven model now, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was a short term. Yeah, it was a specific application. But now you can confidently say, we have applied this program and it's worked.
Yeah.
The other thing that I hear people say all the time is that might be a slightly different shade that I wish it takes 5-10 times rehab before somebody gets sober. Well, maybe or maybe not. Like some folks, depending upon their where they are and how they started and what their situation is, it might not be. So I think there's a vast array of pathways that people take, and we have a problem whenever we assign the same pathway to everybody. Yeah. So there has to be some flexibility in the program, but I also think that there's, and you mentioned it when you talked about the next step of housing where, 2 people went to 23 people. And now you've got a community of people that's working towards that, because I think also often we'll send somebody to rehab and then we put them back into a low barrier environment where everybody around them's using. That does not provide any opportunity for them to sustain sobriety. It's ridiculous.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we also like, even if say you are outside and you're like, I'm so done, I'm so tired, I want to go to treatment. And I can send you to treatment or I can get you into detox or whatever, but then what?
Yep.
Right? Same with if you send somebody to prison, but then what? Do you have an address? Do you have a community? Do you have all these things, right? Like you have to have the and then. Yeah. You have to have the support. You have to have the community, because even if someone's like doing it on their own, they're going to cold turkey and they're going to run through it. At some point, they're going to need somebody else who's been there, who's done that, who can hold them through it. I came out, I had somebody who, he's my partner. He'd been doing this for many, many years. He had almost, I think this year's 19 years clean for him, right? Wow. And like every time I'd be like, okay, I need to go to me. He's like, okay, do you want the nooner? Do you want this? Do you want that? Like
at the
ready, knowing and also understanding like there's going to be days that you need to talk about things that other people who have lived a normal life that don't understand recovery, that don't understand addiction, need to have those conversations, right? And so you can put people in shelter. right? And if that person wants to be clean, you have to, for them to be successful, in my whole heart, I think that they need to be able to leave treatment into a clean and sober
into
environment.
a community.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But again, in some jurisdictions, the idea is like, oh, low barriers, and then everything's low barrier.
Everything's low barrier, but then you're just putting somebody back on the alcohol aisle, right? You're putting somebody back in the smoking
bar.
section,
You're
right?
putting them in the worst possible environment to be
Yeah.
successful.
Right.
And that's counterproductive for everybody.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive for society. It's counterproductive for the budget. It's counterproductive for that individual. It just makes no sense. I think we have consensus. We should stop doing that.
We should, that's right.
Jesus.
To the public. Yeah. I do get more reach outs about that these days than any other thing. Like my kid's sober now. She cannot go back every day. And again, theoretically, I have some access and some knowledge. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know who to call, in this circumstance.
Call Nichole.
No.
I'll call Nichole. Actually, I have.
I don't have that answer.
Yeah. I have called Nichole before.
I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
I know that's a challenge to housing providers, right? That's a challenge to tiny home villages, to all the folks that have the ability to develop.
Yeah.
Why are we not developing that? But also, why are we not developing more supportive housing?
Yeah.
With a more updated structure.
Right.
Because that's how we did with Roe. We updated a lot of structure. We updated the case management, the care teams, all those things. And so it is very realistic around what we are experiencing right now in Seattle in 2025. Not what Seattle or New York or DC was experiencing 30 years ago when PSH was developed, right? Or however long ago it was. Because those systems, although they are funding the buildings, they're not set up for success for clients to continue to grow and thrive.
Right. Yeah, I always feel defensive of the providers because I feel like there's not adequate investment, right? If you can't have medical staff, clinical staff, caseworkers, as you know, in 911, the calls are going up after the case managers leave. And then I also think about the lack of community, to your point. If we've brought people indoors, they're all sort of in their own space of crisis, co-located. Naturally, there's collective disturbance, right? We sort of resonate with one another. So
I also think there's political fatigue. I think that folks want, and particularly in the Seattle area, where folks really want to feel like they're doing something positive for folks in need, homeless folks, crisis folks, SUD folks. But then they have a little catchy program and they throw some money at it, and then they feel good about themselves. Look, we have done some stuff, but they don't look at it with the continuum of care to take that person from the homeless encampment and then through the system to become a productive member of society that's self-supporting and self-sustaining and that sort of thing. And in the long run, oh my goodness, it would be so much more
you are saving
beneficial.
us money.
You'd be sick. I mean, you know what I mean?
We had
taxes.
another program, believe it or not, with
Unbelievable.
WashDOT that we were getting folks into pre-apprenticeship training so that they could go into actual income earning, self-sustaining jobs. And that was one of the first cuts.
Yeah,
right? You know what I mean? Like
I told you, I feel like I'm jinxing programs because everything I talk about that works, it keeps closing.
Yeah.
Like I talked about Civic Hotel every day after I went there, mostly because I lived in that neighborhood and I had no idea it was a low barrier shelter.
Yeah.
It was so beautifully maintained and now it's closed.
We both went there and that was a very
That's right, you
impressive,
went-
very
yeah.
You should see
impressive
the new
program.
building then, because
Oh, is that right?
it is beautiful. The
Good.
new building is beautiful. And I think, but also in that we went from 4 shelters to 1.
Right.
And that is drastic for us to be able to help our community, right? Because then you're not going to places and saying, I can help every single person here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: I like the nuts and bolts and the actual logistics of field implementation. So you said earlier that you get to know these people. So what does that look like? So you're going out to particular encampments for days,
For weeks and months.
and you're talking to the same folks day in and day out. And then are you waiting for an opportunity to then place those people, or is it like a all at once? I think we have X amount of rooms, and so we're going to go out and try to fill those number of rooms, or how does that work? And what is the process for your? And again, I hate doing this because we just got done saying that everybody's different, but this isn't an 8-hour podcast. So for the sake of like just for folks to understand, what's a typical interaction? You go out to an encampment and you run into Bob. And so how many times are you going to run into Bob? Let's say Bob has opiate addiction and takes heroin, but it's often laced with fentanyl and maybe starting to play with fentanyl. And so we're worried, obviously the potential threat of death from overdose is real. Tell us about that. Bob's 35. He has a dog.
Oh, a dog. Well, he's in. No, I'm with Bob.
Right.
So I will say that a lot of it also goes around funding. So the contracts that we have kind of regulate what we do, right? So when I was with Roe, the Right of Way Initiative, I could only be on Washington State property, or like the encampments. They sent us a large list. We went through. We use a tool that helps us grade them.
Okay,
then
Bob's
we go out.
in one of those.
So Bob is in the encampment. The encampment.
Right.
So it is not just Bob. We go out every day intentionally. We prepare the day before we go out. So we know this encampment has 45 people. Bob's one of 45. And we go out to meet every single person. So we go out usually in the morning time. I want to have breakfast with you. I want to wake you up. Most of these encampments are very transient. There's lots of other economic things going on in here. And so we want to be there to wake folks up so that when we're building our by name list, let's be real, right?
All right.
Sometimes one-stop shop. I've worked 3rd Avenue. I've worked 2nd Avenue. I've worked, all of these different encampments. So everything has its own ecosystem. I need to learn that ecosystem for our team to be safe. Our team is very small. Right now, it's myself and 2 other people. We will bring out breakfast. So usually before Costco changed its muffins, it was Costco muffins. But right now I hand make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We come out with frozen waters, all the different things that we think we need. So does Bob have medical? Bob needs flea treatment for the dog, some food, all of these things. We have a wagon. We pull into the encampment most of the time or up next to it. In our car, we go out with the wagons and we go tent by structure. And we check in with every single person and we have conversations. So did we schedule the day before so that we could bring a laptop and a Wi-Fi out so that Bob can order his food stamp card? Is there an ID that we're working on? How's the dog doing? Does the dog need flea medication? All of these different things. And so the team goes out to have conversations with every single person. And I want you to know that person's grandma's cat's name before there's a day that we're not going out, right? Because you not only are building a relationship with somebody so that you can start to see what their needs are, right? Do they need to be in a corner room away from folks where there's not so much activity going on? Are they with a partner, but that's a safety reason why they're with that partner? And when they come inside, they want to be in a different lodging spot. Like, how are you navigating those things? Does this person want to fly home to their parents, right?
Yep.
Like, where are we at with that? And so talking with Bob, we're going to find out, are you interested in SUD treatment? Do you want to get on Suboxone or methadone? We can call the nurse line and do a Suboxone phone call and then help you get to Rite Aid to get your prescription and get you back. And we're going to get you Gatorades and all these things. Does Bob need shoes? What does that look like? And so we're collecting all this information. We do this every day, Monday through Friday.
And initially, what I recall is it's just like, hey, I'm Nicole.
Yeah.
I'm just here to talk to you. Like, I'm not moving
just
you.
outreach.
I'm not with the city.
I am just outreach. I am not here for housing. I'm not here for any of that. I'm not here.
Just here to talk to you on a snack. I mean, it is so disarming. Because there are several teams that are really effective that way. I'm always backing away because I'm with the city and I usually look official, despite the boots. But one of the encounters that I observed with her, you've heard this story before. It was this young man, again, who's about to come inside. So after, this would have been weeks or months. And I could tell she had addressed every single concern proactively. And then she said, listen, he had an ID. You were like, we are going to run background. And she said, don't be alarmed. Anything that comes up, we can deal with it. It's not a big thing. You're coming into shelter. But it would be helpful if you're aware of anything. And he looked really panicked in that moment. He was a kid. I mean, I remember thinking he was probably the age that my younger son is. looked really scared. And I thought, oh no, what is this going to be? And he talked about parking tickets. Do you remember that in Portland? He was like, I have so many parking tickets, just panicked. And you did want to laugh because it was so sweet. There was an innocence about it, but it just reminded me again, as a mom, it's like we get so overwhelmed when we're young. And it just, at a certain point, it's like, I can't do this, and that's how that guy felt to me that day. But Nichole was like, we'll take care of the parking tickets.
It's gonna be, we could talk about parking tickets. Yeah. You got any firearms charges? That's what I'm wondering.
Exactly.
But those are things that we talk about, right? And so then I collect the information. A couple weeks go by, I come out, we do a 1-page screener, right? And then you tell me what's going on, right? So the conversation of like, do you have any criminal history? Do you have any mental health diagnosis? Do you have any physical concerns going on? What would you like us to help you with? I go back to the team. We sit down. Big whiteboard, lots of paperwork everywhere.
Color-coded.
Color-coded. And we put the stickies on. This is where you'll probably go for lodging. This is the resource that we need for this person. And then if there's a small pile of individuals that have higher needs or higher barriers, then we reach out to partnering orgs and we case conference to get that individual. So when all that's said and done, we set a date. And I let the property owner know, like WashDOT, the city, whoever it is that we're working with at that time, hey, this is the day that we're going to have everybody off. I tell them the day after I'm actually going to have everybody off, just so you know. So that way we have everybody moved within a 3-day period. I usually work 3 days because you can say Monday for everybody. Nobody's moving on Monday, okay? They'll be ready Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, site will get closed on Friday, which means that nobody's there. We walk through with the property owners and physically hand the site back so that the machines can then come on. They can close the streets off, clean up crews, all those things. We take down individual tents of every single person as they're moving out. So it's like a final thing for them, right? Like I am taking my belongings that I want to bring.
Well, that's interesting. So they're processing.
Yeah. So that they're taking their tents down, they're taking their structures down so that they're saying goodbye to like, this is it. This is really what we're doing. And we use a transportation company that works with us specifically. They bring big cargo vans and we load people in there. So that way folks are transported with dignity and an understanding. They have conversations with them the whole time. They've been working with us for 5 years. But it is very skilled and intentional, the closure dates that we use. Sometimes we're up against like contracts for construction or something like that. Or if somebody's like in the middle of the street and we got to move them right away, right? But usually it will be a very structured outline. We work from the date backwards most of the time so that when I meet with WashDOT or whatever, it would be like, hey, I need at least 6 weeks. When I start working inside there, I'm like, okay, there's like 2 or 3 people. They need higher barrier stuff. I'm going to need an extra week or 2 to work with our partners, whatever, right? But everything is extremely transparent. And also on the ground, it is very transparent. As soon as we know, hey, we're actually going to move folks and people are like, are you here because we're going to get moved? Yep, I'm here because everybody's going to get moved. This site's going to get closed. It has construction going on. This is the resources we're looking at. As we approve people, we let them know, hey, this is a resource we have you approved for. These are the rules to this, right? Like you can't have visitors, like you can come and go as you want. You're grown, you have your own room key, right? All these things, can't have weapons. But it's having that open communication with folks so that you have that trust and they know when they get to where they're going, they know what to expect, right? Like this is really, truly what you said it was. And this is where we're at.
Are you trying to keep whole communities together? Is that ideal that you're moving all at once? Or is it more like, oh, this person is ready. We can house this person tomorrow?
I try to move everybody at once in a 3-day period. And that is, I mean, we've worked 130 person sites and I'm trying to move everybody in 3 days because.
But not to the same place.
Well, I've never moved 130 people to the same place, but divided between a couple buildings.
You're trying to keep community together to some extent. Because that's what they're doing in Denver.
If you have a community and it's a safe community, yes, right? But if there's a partnership and one of them is like, this is not safe, I'm not trying to be here, then I'm not going to place you with that person. And I'm going to place you somewhere that they are not aware of.
That's another reality that I don't think the average person understands, that there are people who are in relationships for survival or because they are dependent on a source or they are being sold and so I think it's just completely misunderstood, that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And you have people like me being very literal, right? Like, oh, this is a community. Let's keep them all together.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to look at what that community is doing and safety and then the regulations around things. Some people might not be able to be lodged where you're trying to lodge them because there's a school nearby. Some people
Yeah,
might not be able
right.
to because there's a trespassing with the Trader Joe's that's attached to the building or
Right.
whatever, right? So you do have to look at some of that stuff. And then depending on the ecosystem, right? Like, are you moving a group of individuals that could be more assertive onto a different group of individuals that you have there? How are you doing floor placement? How are you doing room placement? So all of these things are very much strategically designed with inside our lodging and with inside our case management teams so that folks know, like, this person shouldn't have a female case manager. This person should be their room,
Yeah.
right? We want to make sure that everything is visual, right? This person has hard days and needs to be able to take a walk and like have access to like just an easy out kind of situation. And so those are all things along with like pets and partners and all those things. But when you look at moving
Individualized,
community,
tailored for the person.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that's a little off topic. It's
Okay.
a little bit outside of your role, but I think you have insight into the answer. So I want to ask a question. One of the things that I feel really strongly about is, and it's based in the fact that as a cop, you know, we often arrest the same people over and over and over again. So those people are arrested and booked into KCJ or you know, whatever jail that you're going to, and they're in there for 24, 72 hours, something like that, and they get out, PR'd, and then we're, you know, 3 days later we're arresting them again and again and again. So it occurs to me, from 15 years in narcotics enforcement, where I'm talking to folks that are users, and I'll tell you, users who are detained by the police, as you well know, are deathly afraid of, you know, detoxing and being incarcerated and separated from their drug, from their addiction. And at those moments in time have a very cogent desire to either find a way to get back to their drug, or B, that's when they are most receptive to the idea of, if there was another way, if I could not be addicted to this drug that's probably going to kill me, I would like to do that. So what I would like to see our system do is seize upon those moments when somebody is arrested for misdemeanor stuff that's likely feeding their addiction, to say, hey, here's an opportunity. You can either get PR'd, you know, in 3 days and be subject to prosecution for this and yada, yada. Or you can go into this program that will perhaps medically assist your treatment, therapy, the wraparound services, the healthcare, the life skills, all of the things that I think you have brilliantly articulated are necessary to sort of synergistically bring that person to a place where they can begin to recover. It seems to me that we're missing an opportunity when those folks are incarcerated, and not give them, and I mean not in prison, but in jail for periods of time, an option to spend that time in a voluntary treatment program versus the cycle that folks are in, where they're using, they're committing crimes, they're getting arrested, they're getting out, they're committing crime, they're using, and whatnot. So when you're talking to the horde of Bobs that and you articulated earlier that, you know, substance use, you know, are you ready for substance use disorder treatment? Is that something you're interested in doing? What do you believe? First of all, do you think that the plan that I have, you know, been talking about would be a viable option for some percentage of folks? Do you think that there's utility in it? And then what do you think when that person, when you ask them in the encampment, what are you ready? You know, do you want to pursue treatment, rehab? what are the factors that create that moment in time where they want to? Because all of the people that I talk to who are users did not want to be addicted to something they thought was going to kill themselves. But also, as soon as you let them go, we're going to go back and do exactly that.
How do I answer this?
You don't have to make me happy.
No, I'm not going to make you happy at all.
No, well, that's good. I want to hear your perspective.
I think that arresting individuals and giving them the option is not giving somebody an option, right? I think that is kind of like, well, you're going to go to jail and get dope sick, or you could.
Me happy,
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Whatever.
keep going.
I just think like, you can't arrest somebody and then be like, hey, do you want to go to treatment, or they already do that. They've done that. They did that a couple of years ago. They also had kind of like DOSA was around that too, right? Like you can go to prison, or you can take this big max sentence and sit in, be in community and end up, whatever. So I think that reaching individuals while they're in community, while they're in crisis, all of these things, right? Like that's what outreach workers are for. That's why we're out there every day, right? We have the ability, but also like we just talked about, you have to be able to give them the safety to be able to make those life choices, right? Like you have to be able to come inside, you have to be able to have a home, like some safe environment to come into, and then be able to make that actual clear choice, not under like a very pivotal moment where you could be going to jail or you could be doing this, right? When you look at an individual and you're like, how do you know when they're ready? If we wouldn't have addiction, if that was the thing, right? But when you look at, there's just not enough resources right now. We're not helping our unhoused individuals to the point where they can make that decision and continue through that journey right now. It is very, very few people that get to come inside, be safe, make that journey, and then have sober, clean living to go to afterwards. I don't have that within my program right now. If somebody goes to treatment, I struggle to backdoor them into clean and sober housing from that treatment center. We've had to ask treatment centers to hold individuals while we're trying to find housing. Yeah, because it's not, we're not funded for that part, right? Like it's not there. So I don't think
I understand that part.
Yeah,
I understand that part completely. But I also know that you went to prison a couple times. The third time you went, you said, okay, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I imagine that incarceration had played some role in you coming to that place. Do you think that if you had never been arrested, if you had never had law enforcement intervention, do you think that you would have
broken the cycle?
Well, at this on the same time frame, I mean, part of becoming fatigued with something is the negative repercussions that
I think the lifestyle that I lived, and this is the honest truth, I would have been killed before I would have stopped, right? And that is just 100% the way that I was living. I'm very surprised. When I turned 21, I was surprised I was still alive. I didn't even know what to do with my life. But I don't think it was the arrest. I think it was the realization that people around me, I just didn't have an operation that was safe anymore. But I don't think it was the arrest. I don't think it was my time in prison that got me clean and sober. I'd done 2 stints just as long in prison before. I think it was the internal factor. And I think that it was myself surrounding myself in a community that was clean and sober. That was not within, prison guards don't give that to you. My family didn't give that to me. It was one individual, and then it was the sober community that then started that.
The
and
sober
then education.
community within.
When she exited.
When I exited,
because again, her partner helped her get to the right place. And I think it's so folksy, but at the end of the day, it's always love and connection.
It is
right?
community
But I also
and connection,
think, I don't disagree with that at all. And we've heard that from a vast number of folks that we've talked to, that purpose and intention and taking control of their own lives is part of the real draw towards a rehabbed lifestyle. But I also think that the time of reflection and sobriety in prison may have provided an environment for you to get to the place where you began to think, oh, I need to to change things here.
Solid misconception that you're sober while in prison.
Well, no, I understand.
You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be like,
I totally get that,
Yeah.
but it's also not.
Yeah.
It's not all. It's also not being in prison. I mean,
Right.
there are differences in accessibility and.
I think what's interesting is when you think about Weld,
Mhm.
again, they are supporting people, wraparound support, exiting jails and prisons. But ideally, actually, they're doing what Nichole's doing. They're saying we don't want it. In an ideal state, it would be Nichole and Patrick, those people outreaching folks so that they can, of their own volition, come into community and then start to address the past harm done and have restorative practice.
I think that's the crux of your
I think
success. Right?
To talk about the folks that are reoffending and reoffending, right? There's a program called LEAD, which is also part of Purpose, Dignity, Action, right? And we work with those folks that are high utilizers of the systems, that are continually stealing toilet paper out of Target and being on Third and all those things. Those are my people. Those are the people that I want to bring inside, that I want to wrap services around, because those individuals that cost the community so much are the individuals that end up giving back, right? Those are the individuals that 70% of them have gone on to be completely and permanently housed, that are being very successful in life. One of the individuals that works with us, he was a lead client, and now he is what is his title, right? He's a supervisor of our case managers, right? And he's getting ready to change positions right now. But to say that some of us were absolutely like, I was in the gutter doing the worst things, and to say now, like, I help implement things that create change for individuals, right? Like, you are going to have to look at an individual as an individual, give an open door for them, and then start their care at their speed. Unfortunately, sometimes that means that they're still in survival mode, right? And you have to help them see that surviving a different way, there is a different path, but you have to have that path.
Right.
So bringing somebody
has
inside
to exist.
and being like, okay, well, how do they now take care of themselves? How do we support this? How do we navigate? How do they educate themselves? All of these different things. When you fund a shelter, it's usually just the building and the staff, right? It's not the other core things that you need to change people's
the wraparound
lives.
services.
So so as you look at programs, as you look at data, you really need to dive into what those things were, right? I constantly tell people I'm not a unicorn, and some of the other individuals around me are not unicorns. It's because we had opportunities and we were able to take those.
Well, one of the things that we it is powerful, and there's a real consistency with the great thing about the podcast and sort of the area that we're talking, the topics that we're talking about, is we've seen a number of Nicholes who've been there, done that, and have now charted a different course, made hard changes, and are living very productive, meaningful lives, purpose-driven, with dignity and all of the things that we've talked about. And it's through sort of a wraparound services approach. And we appreciate that. And there are so many similarities between you and many of the guests that we've had on here. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. I think the numbers don't lie, right? I mean, you've tapped into an approach and a program that's highly successful. We want to do everything we can to support that and spread the word on positive outcomes. And Amy, sits right in that sweet spot of trying to, get the law enforcement perspective, the 911, the care responders, and get the services to people that actually make the difference in people's lives. So that's we're excited to have had you here today to demonstrate those things. And is there anything to wrap it up that you want to?
I'm going to have you back on when you're a doctor. We're going to have a little
I will gladly do it.
Yeah. I'm just so impressed. I'm very grateful for you.
The folks that you see that you get videos of all those, right? Like every one of those people can be right here.
That's
and
right.
I think that it's very important for us to understand that sometimes it takes a yes and a hug and a muffin and a wake up call in the morning, right? To check on them. You can't put somebody in a box and think that cures everything. And at the end of the day, when you don't recognize them because they look so good, you've done your job. right? And I can't wait to work myself out of a job, not talk myself out of a job, but work myself out of a job, because there is actually a solution. Like, we have the solution. And I think that we have to understand that these are humans that we work with every day, and that's somebody's brother and sister and mother and their puppy, and that's their person. And we need to wrap services around them to be successful.
There you go. I can't
Yeah.
think of a better way to close things out. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
And now you've been bombarded.
Yeah.
The Bombardened podcast is a Barden Squared production. Executive producers are Eric Barden and Amy Barden, and video and audio production of the Bombardened podcast is by Thread Theory Creative.